We are looking at the much allocated to the education sector. 656 billion shillings is the global figure. 55% of that, or 358 billion shillings, goes to the Teacher Service Commission for financing the employment of teachers, their salaries as well. Basic education is allocated 142.3 billion shillings. Higher education, 128 billion shillings. And TVET is allocated 30.7 billion shillings. If you were to look at the education sector at the higher level, HELB was to receive 35.9 billion shillings. University scholarship was to be allocated 16.9 billion shillings. TVET capitation and scholarship was to take 7.7 billion shillings. Beyond that, for the free primary education, this is a program that has existed since 2003. It was allocated 9.1 billion shillings. For the free day secondary education, 61.9 billion shillings. We'll be looking at the specific allocations per learner. The junior secondary schools that received 30.7 billion shillings, and examination fees were allocated at 5 billion shillings. Then still on the education sector, this is the capitation per learner. If you are in primary, meaning you're benefiting from free primary education, every learner is allocated 1,420 shillings per year. In the secondary school sector, you receive 22,244 shillings per learner. For the junior secondary school, they receive 15,000 shillings per learner. But there is supposed to be a schedule of how resources are released to the schools. 50% should go to the schools in term 1, 30% should go to the schools in term 2, 20% should go to the schools in term 3. Most times, school heads complain that that doesn't happen. But there are other sources of financing in the education sector, and that is to do with the bursaries that are divided across different sources. The national government, CDF, kitty, you have 35 to 40% of kitties in different constituencies being allocated for bursaries. And of course, the total allocation for the current financial year is 54.7 billion shillings. This is, of course, after the cuts that were implemented by Parliament. Then, obviously, we are talking about, if you take this figure of 54.7 billion shillings, 40%, which is an estimate, would give you 21.8 billion shillings going to the education sector, specifically on bursaries. Beyond that, there's more financing that comes from the National Government Affirmative Action Fund that goes through women representatives. Current total allocation for the fund is 3.3 billion shillings. A bit of it goes to financing education. And then county governments as well, they have bursaries that also go to learners. There are other scholarships by financial institutions, private and otherwise. But also these are some of the questions that are emerging, including what the Chief Justice is talking about this evening, about the situation we are in. So many sources of funds distributed across the different sectors, yet education is still unaffordable. Do you plan to introduce that to...
No, we don't have timelines. You know, these are, I said, legislation some.
True, it is continuous, but if you have a plan, there must be some timelines they're looking at, because...
Well, first of all, we may not even bring it as one bill.
Okay.
Because there are some bills which maybe affect what I would call trade and industry. Yeah. They could be brought under trade and industry. You know, Kenyans are obsessed with this omnibus bill or finance bill every year. The finance bill of 2024 failed. You can't resuscitate it. It's a dead horse.
What format will these proposals take?
You know, that is something that we have to determine and even agree with the cabinet and even have the Attorney General's input.
All right.
This is a work in progress.
Okay.
There's someone who probably, I don't know who, trying to bring this as an emergency. There is no emergency. We have a legal framework in place to collect our taxes.
And that's
so there is no emergency. What we are saying is that certain things that were progressive, we must look for a way of bringing them back in a way that would help in promoting growth and helping streamline tax administration.
And that's why we have you here to clarify some of those issues. Tell me more about the other clauses that you want to bring on board.
No, I just mentioned that there are quite a number of issues that we need to bring forward. One is the tax amnesty. Yeah. Tax amnesty is where both parties benefit, the taxpayers and the government.
What are you targeting to raise from that?
Well, last year we raised 43 billion shillings.
This year?
This year we were targeting to raise, it could be as low as 30, as high as 50 billion shillings. But the issue here is not just about raising taxes, it's about compliance. You see, there's people who have tax arrears. And these tax arrears have accumulated penalties and interest to the extent that they get frustrated, the taxpayers. One of the objectives of our tax policy is to make tax payment humane and have taxpayers comply. So we give them opportunity to pay the principal tax and not to pay penalties and interest. So
a little bit stick on the question of sugar, because you see, this is a sector that has struggled for so long. And I'm just wondering, how does the taxing imported sugar help an industry that is not able to sustain the local demand?
Sam, I wish you understood me. I said the data will be out, that some of the government interventions, recent interventions, have resulted in increased production of sugar.
To what capacity now?
Maybe I need to get the figures, but it is there. It is in the government statistics.
And I'm looking at them right now, just for information. The national demand, this is a sugar report filed by the task force that was looking into it under President Uhuru Kenyatta's regime. The national demand was 1.01 metric tons. The local production was 490,000 metric tons, which is less than 50%. The deficit was 521,000 metric tons, meaning much of it was imported. If you had to look at the current production at that time of cane in the country, was 4.75 million metric tons. The requirement was double, 9.84 million tons. But the sector in the country could only produce 1.09 metric tons. So you're looking at an industry that is already struggling to sustain the demand.
So those are statistics for which period?
I'm talking about the 2018. The statistics that were given by the task force.
So Sam, are we in 2018 or we are in 2020?
In fact, if you had to look at the figures...
Let me put it this way. The recent interventions, and I said, I was very specific, the recent interventions have increased production of sugar. If we do much more, which we are doing, by the way, one of the things is the reforms in the sugar sector. There is a problem with the bill at the Senate, which I hope will be resolved quickly. I don't know whether it has been passed, the sugar bill. We are likely now to grow and produce more sugar, which may meet our local demands. What we are interested in is also to discourage the dumping of sugar in this country, cheap sugar, which then kill the local production. So those are the things that we must do. I am not saying that the demand has not been higher than the supply. It has been. We know that. And it has been there, those statistics. But there is recent interventions, including the privatization of the sugar industries, which we want to do. So if this bill can be dealt with and passed as is required, and then other interventions are implemented, then we will have a sugar industry that is thriving. Remember, I also come from a sugar growing area. So I must protect that industry.
What are you considering bringing back?
Many things. Not bringing back as such, but what I'm saying that there are provisions in that bill which were progressive. For example, Sam, I would ask, why would one reject amendment to excise duty to increase excise duty on imported sugar from 5 shillings to 7.5 shillings per kilogram to protect our sugar industry? Why would one reject that? Just because it was in the finance bill of 2024? Those are progressive provisions in the law. Why would one reject...
Doesn't that... All right. And let's talk about, because I think it's just towards the end of last week, you spoke to Emmanuel of Citizen TV and you said that there are measures that you're considering to bring to Parliament, some, is it 47 or 49 clauses. Why do you want to bring back eco-levy that was rejected by Kenyans?
I think, let me be clear, eco-levy is not one of the things that we are considering to bring, for your information, Sam. I think the way the whole thing was reported, I only asked a question because Emmanuel was asking me that eco-levy is contentious, that multinationals, actually use the word multinationals, are complaining. So I asked, why are they complaining? Because I wanted to understand why they have a problem with eco-levy. You know, there are people who have argued that eco-levy is desirable or needs to be brought because of environmental issues. So I just asked a question. I didn't say it is one of the clauses that are considered. But let me be very clear and categorical, because I don't want to appear like I'm ambiguous on these things. First, we are not bringing back Finance Bill 2024. That should go out very clearly. It's dead. It's buried. It is withdrawn. There were so many clauses in that bill that were offensive. Kenyans rejected them, and therefore they have no space under my regime as cabinet secretary in charge of national treasury and economic planning, I have made it very clear to the president that cannot be brought under my leadership as the cabinet secretary. We have issues of eco levy. We have left it out because, we are not considering it because one, there are any issue that was contentious, we want to put those to abeyance. Even if they will come, they will come later, not as at this point in time. We have issues with the vehicle circulation, motor vehicle circulation, issues with taxing bread, issues of sanitary pads, issues like financial transactions, issues like money transfers. All those we have said, anything that Kenyans had issues with and felt that was oppressive to them are out of the table.
This is available now? Or what?
No, we don't have resources for recruiting JSS teachers on permanent. That would be lying, and we don't have resources for the additional 20,000. That was reduced in the estimates. There was a mention, from the Departmental Committee of Education, but the final figure that was carried to the budget doesn't have it. So it's there's a shortfall of about 13 billion shillings, yes.
Shortfall. So how much was availed in regards to the JSS teachers? Would you know?
There's no money availed for...
No money availed for conversion?
No money, unless now we again do budget adjustments, which... we really don't have that space as we speak. So we all know that this year is a year of serious challenge. We are trying to manage the budget. Actually, even the money that we have made available for the teachers for their salary adjustments, we really had to look around and see how we can raise that.